All right, Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachak, Wadash, noble honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be. Wherever you may be, Shalom, Yeshua, Shalom. All right, so we're going to get into this video here. It's not the whole video clip. I encourage you to go to this channel. You see that GE is right there at the left, bottom left of this rectangle I'm shaking around. Geopolitical economy report. All right, brings out some very good, things, talking points, things of that nature. So what I'm going to do, for convenience, I've minimized the screen. But what I'm gonna do is play the video and get into a couple of these talking points that it's actually some ways down in the video, but this is a very important thing given because we're watching for the prophecies, right? Right, we're watching for Babylon against its allies, Babylon against its enemies, and all different types of things. Watching for the MOTB. All right. So let me play this video. Let me crank up the volume, make sure it's up. Okay, yep. So I'm gonna play this video here. So listen up.
Advanced semiconductors, chips that it needs to train its AI models. And this is why the U.S. Department of Defense has stated very clearly in its internal documents that China is the #1 so-called threat. And this is why this internal Pentagon memo signed by Defense Secretary Hegseth has said that the Pentagon is committed above all to trying to prevent the Chinese mainland from reintegrating with Taiwan.
Now, China, it may very well be true that China may be one of their greatest threats. But as far as the scriptures go, we know that Russia is still going to be the backbone for all those who oppose, the American forces and those that are aligned with America, right? We know that Russia is that backbone. As a matter of fact, that is in close my man out. We'll get him back. Let's go over here. I was trying to make it more easier for myself, jumping back and forth. So real quick, let's go to Ezekiel 38. All right, so, yep. And thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. All right, now this is not talking about the original, gods of this nation. This is now talking about Russia, all right? It says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So this is what you've been seeing Russia do. Actually, not seeing, because for many years Russia has been doing these things behind the scene. But now, given that World War III is, an imminent thing, all right, it's now playing out on a low level, all right. It's not that, breaking alert, worldwide news type of deal, but we know that different nations are against different nations. Different nations are aligned with different nations, so on and so forth. It's that world war, all right? It's that scenario playing out, all right, according to the prophecies. Okay, and so now it's out in the forefront that Russia has been doing this, Russia has been doing that, and it's a well-known fact that Russia has not only more, all right, weaponized like missiles or whatever than America, but their technology is far more advanced. Okay. So it says, and that's the big bag on the opposite side of the playing field, right? As we mentioned, sometimes like a football game, right? You have all these different teams playing up to the Super Bowl, right? But there's only going to be two teams, one on this side, one on that side, all right? And all the teams that didn't make it, and they might actually root for one team or another, and that's how this world stage is, all right? You're either on that side or you're either on the other side. It's only going to be two players, though everybody, is fighting, all right? Or not two players, but two major teams, all right? Though everybody's fighting. So it's Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah in the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, all right? Talking about Russia, and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, all right? Everybody that's joining up with the BRICS nations and all these countries here that mention, all right? That you're going to side with them, and be thou a guard unto them. See, be that backbone. You're the bear. Okay, be that guard. All right. And Russia, America does a lot of tiptoeing around Russia. All right, because they know they want to avoid to the best of their ability a head-on confrontation. All right. They might set up some little proxy war type events and things of that nature, but they want to try to avoid Russia head-on. Okay, which is why Ukraine is such a big fuss. Which is also why Ukraine hasn't been able to join NATO, because what is it, Article 5, right? If you attack me, you attack all my allies, or vice versa. If you attack one of my allies, you attacked all of us, right? So that means everybody on that side is going to have to step up for Ukraine, and well, Russia's not going to have that, nor his allies. So bam, all right. World War III is going to spring forward before anybody wants it to, but it's not going to do that because it's only going to, come to that point when the Lord wants it to. All right. So let me go find my man again. Bear with me. I have to just pull that down. I think there he is right there. All right, perfect. So we're at that point.
Chinese mainland from reintegrating with Taiwan. The U.S. goal is to try to use Taiwan as a military outpost to weaken China. And this goes back to the original strategy during the first Cold War, when the U.S. military not only had a large military base on Taiwan, but the U.S. actually had nuclear weapons stored in Taiwan. In fact, during the Second Taiwan Strait Crisis in 1958,
frozen in time? Don't take slow for an answer. Get fast 1 gig optimum internet for the new low price of just...
During the Second Taiwan Strait Crisis in 1958, the U.S. military wanted to nuke China over Taiwan. This was disclosed in 2021 by the famous whistleblower Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the...
And Slocky, that's a good thing right there that he's talking about on the screen real quick before he continues. Because I'm looking at the all right, this not bullet points, but these timestamps here. And as you can see, there's a lot of good things that he talks about in this video. That's why, I encourage you to actually go watch this video for yourself. I see it right there, 45 minutes long, 45:29. All right. So yeah, he talks about quite a few very good things in this video here. All right, so you might want to watch it for yourself. But I just want to play a certain portion here. So let's keep going.
Pentagon Papers, he revealed that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the leaders of the U.S. military, were pushing to use nuclear weapons against China in 1958.
So I missed it. I was trying to...
But it was actually the U.S. President Eisenhower who was against the idea because he didn't want a nuclear war. Now, of course, Eisenhower was not a dove by any stretch of the imagination. He said that the U.S. should use conventional missiles and bombs to attack China instead of nuclear missiles. But the point I'm getting at is that...
There it is right there. U.S. military considered using nuclear weapons against China in 1958. Taiwan Strait Crisis. Leaked documents show. Right? And we know, I believe it's China that's saying that Taiwan belongs to them. Okay, and they want to take that back, which is why there's been conflict between China and Taiwan, which is the same thing when you deal with North Korea, South Korea. It's the same thing. They have tensions. They're both called Korea, but there's a North and there's a South. All right. Now, China and Taiwan may have different names, but like was said, China says that Taiwan belongs to them, and they're going to take it back, which is no different. Also, when you deal with Russia, he'll tell you why we annexed Crimea, okay, which resulted in the Crimea Bridge being destroyed, not by them. Right, by our opposing forces, but he'll tell you why we annexed Crimea. He'll tell you why we're fighting to take over Ukraine. It's the same scenario there, right? So what you're seeing, and this goes to show you how America is hypocrites, because when they put Trump into office, which is not really about Trump, but remember they talked about President was it Kinley, okay, who was an expansionist president, right? So you have America being Babylon the Great, also the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. They're trying to change names of this and change names of that. All right, expand its territory, expand its reach. They want to buy this and buy that. But meanwhile, when someone else does it, oh no, you can't do that. That's not right. But what are you doing? You're doing the same thing. You're trying to expand while everybody else stays the same. Okay, so it goes to show you how hypocritical America is, right? When you stand back and look at the bigger picture. Okay, but let's keep going. Because it's the same scenario across the board, man. Everybody in these end times are trying to expand their territory because they think that one day they're going to take over the earth like other nations did in the time past. No, that's done with, all right? Hey, the Lord already put all the nations in the power seat of the earth that he's going to do, all right? The Edomites are the last ones. After this, all right, Israel got next, okay?
During the first Cold War, the U.S. had a large military base in Taiwan with nuclear weapons, and they came very close to using those nuclear weapons against the Chinese mainland. And what the U.S. would love to do today is to reopen that military base and put more nuclear weapons. In fact, the U.S. military already...
And look at this headline behind him. It says, Pentagon doubles number of U.S. troops in Taiwan under Biden I don't think that one's new, but I was just reading it though.
Has troops in Taiwan. This has been acknowledged. In fact, the Biden administration doubled the number of U.S. troops in Taiwan. Moreover, the United States has sold Taiwan billions of dollars of weapons and military technology over years. In 2023, the BBC published an article that said very clearly, quote, "The U.S. is quietly arming Taiwan to the teeth," end quote. And what Washington has essentially been doing is eroding the very
Oh yeah, and that makes me think. Remember, China and America had a meeting, all right? And so they sat down, chopped it up together, and what's his name? Xi Jinping. So Xi Jinping told, was it? I want to say it was Biden at this time, all right? He told him, all right, Taiwan pretty much belongs to us, and everything between us will be fine as long as you don't step in our way. Now, of course, America's going to play it cool, going to play it smooth. But look at what we're listening to right now, okay? They didn't step in the way as in just outright like, nah, we're going to stop you from doing this because China already told you, hey, if you try this, we fighting, okay? So America is trying to subtly, like he's talking about now, arming Taiwan. So they're trying to do it, secretly, subtly, right? We're going to arm you to a certain level, right? We're going to do this, we're going to that. We're going to build up here and help you guys out secretly and not in the forefront. So that way, we don't go directly with China because we already know they're not going to stop trying to take you guys over. So you see this, but this is the world stage, all right? This is just how things work. Let's keep going.
Foundations of the formal diplomatic relations between the U.S. and China. In 1972, when the U.S. President Richard Nixon visited China, they signed the first communique, the Shanghai Communique, in which the U.S. acknowledged the one China policy, that there's only one China, that Taiwan is part of China. And then...
There you go. You see what we just mentioned, right? That's their whole reason for going at Taiwan. You belong to us. We're going to take it back. That's why we gave the scenario. North Korea, South Korea, Russia, Ukraine. It's the same thing everywhere. But meanwhile, you have America just trying to expand over everywhere and everybody's territory, right? It's because it's the Edomites behind that who pushes these things, right? Talking about America, that is. Let's keep going.
In 1979, when the U.S. and China formally established diplomatic relations, the U.S. once again acknowledged the one China policy. And in the third communique, signed in 1982, the U.S. promised that over time it would stop selling weapons to Taiwan. Well, here we are 40 years later, and not only does the U.S. continue to sell weapons to Taiwan, it's actually selling more weapons over time, not fewer weapons. So the United States has clearly been violating the spirit of the one China policy, even though technically, formally on paper, the U.S. government recognizes that Taiwan is part of China. This is written in international law.
Hold up, see? That's what we just talked about. When they had that meeting, Xi Jinping and Biden, they talked about these things. Okay, America understands that. But are they going to stop doing what they do? Of course not. Okay, they are going to stop, arming this person or arming that person. Okay. They're not going to stop doing this, doing that. And when it comes to the situation of North Korea, South Korea, I want to say North Korea is what a flat top, I call him. What's his name? Kim Jong-un. Okay, so you have America backing up South Korea. I believe I can't remember which one is North Korea, South Korea with Kim Jong-un, but whichever, the opposite of Kim Jong-un. All right, so you have America who is backing them up, and you also had Japan backing them up. So you know what he did? He went and spoke with Russia. Okay? It's like, okay, you want to play ball that way? Well, let's play bigger ball. So he went up to Russia. All right? Let's chop it up. Okay? So there's so many angles that America is coming from, but they're always trying to do things secretly. And it's not so secret anymore. It's in the open. Hey, the scripture said that the least of the flock shall draw them out. What's the least of the flock? Those Amalekites over there in the state of Israel. Okay? And America is in different places doing different things. There's no pulling back at this point. All right? The prophecies are moving forward. There is no not going to be, because you hear a lot of talks of we're going to have to stop this, we have to stop that, or we have to prevent World War III. It's not going to happen because that's not what the will of the Lord is. Okay? Let's keep going.
United Nations, there is only one China, the People's Republic of China, and the United Nations recognizes Taiwan as part of China. And not just the UN, even US-dominated bodies like the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in which the US has veto power. The IMF, if you go to their website, they refer to Taiwan as Taiwan province of China. According to international law, even according to the U.S. government, technically on paper, they recognize that Taiwan is part of China. There is only one China. That is the one China policy. The U.S. has been strong.
Which makes that much more crazier when you just talk about what he just talked about, arming them and so on and so forth, right? And the meeting we spoke about, right?
Strongly supporting separatists in Taiwan who are pushing for formal independence from China, including the current leader of Taiwan, who's very pro-U.S., Lai Ching-te, who is pushing right up on the limits of declaring independence from China, which would cause a war, and the U.S. government has been cheering him on, both the Biden administration and the Trump administration, and giving him billions of dollars of weapons.
We have to be present. In the Indo-Pacific, they're trying to drive us out. We have a strong relationship. We are a Pacific nation. We are. And so we have relationships in the Pacific, and we're not going to abandon those. Japan, South Korea. You mentioned Taiwan. We have a long-standing position on Taiwan that we're not going to abandon, and that is we are against any forced, compelled, coercive change in the status of Taiwan. That's been our position since the late 1970s, and that continues to be our position, and that's not going to change. But we have to have military capabilities that allow us to respond to the threat that China is posing.
And by the way, although they claim to be democratic in scare quotes, what they're now planning on doing, the Taiwanese leadership, is they're threatening to bring back the military tribunals from back during the original Cold War. Because during the first Cold War, Taiwan did not have a liberal democracy. Taiwan was run by a military dictatorship, by the Kuomintang, the KMT. And now the so-called democratic authorities in Taiwan are threatening to bring back military tribunals so they can throw their political opposition in prison and accuse them of being spies for mainland China or for being too friendly with the Chinese mainland, which for them will be a crime because, again, they and their U.S. sponsors are preparing for war with China, which is why they need to resort to these very extreme authoritarian tactics. And by the way, they can talk about democracy in scare quotes all they want. You know, when they say democracy, they mean billionaires and millionaires can buy elections and corporations are people, you know, as the U.S. Supreme Court ruled. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is that they talk about democracy, but in reality, the vast majority of people in Taiwan do not want separatism, do not want independence. Polls show that over 80% of people in Taiwan want the status quo, not independence. A poll found that in 2023, only 3.8% of people wanted Taiwan's immediate independence. And over decades, polling has shown that there has never been more than 7.8% of the population of Taiwan who want immediate independence from China. So U.S. government propaganda and corporate media talking points, they claim that they have to support democracy in Taiwan. In order to support democracy, supposedly they have to support independence. But the vast majority of the population doesn't want independence. Only a small percentage of pro-U.S. elites, who often are funded by U.S. think tanks and U.S. corporations, U.S. foundations, only they want independence. They don't represent the majority. And yet the U.S. is threatening.
And what's interesting is when you just look at all the different countries and things that happen in all the different countries, the Lord is bringing forth many different reasons for all the people of these different countries to go through those things, speaking about in Jacob's trouble, uprising, riots and things of that nature. There's different scenarios happening in different countries, which are different reasons for each of these, citizens of these countries to rise up when that time comes and do this and do that and take things in the matter of their hands. On top of you have the digital system and the CHIP. On top of the fact that you have, World War III coming, full blown worldwide. All right. And just so many other things, which, mostly read about Jacob's trouble, or at least most heavily. All right. In 2nd Esdras chapter 15, 16. Maybe some things in 14, but I believe 14, if I'm correct, 14 has some things about war in there. But definitely 15 and 16, all right? Okay? Man should not regard his neighbors and, uprising of the people, sedition amongst men, all these different things, all right? These are going to be things of Jacob's trouble in every country, everywhere. There's going to be no peace anywhere. Everybody's going to be in upright, the whole entire planet. If we could stand back, at a bird's eye view or in space or somewhere and watch the world, okay, we will see what the Lord and the angels and everything else are seeing, all right? Everybody on the planet going crazy. Of course, except for the Lord's remnant, but I was making a point with that.
War with China over Taiwan because, again, the U.S. wants to turn Taiwan into a big military base that it can use to try to weaken China. And by the way, there's another important reason, which is that Taiwan is home into a big military base that it can use to try to war with China over Taiwan, because again, the U.S. wants to turn Taiwan into a big military base that it can use to try to weaken China. And by the way, there's another important reason, which is that Taiwan is home to one of the world's most important companies, which is called TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They produce the majority of the world's most advanced chips, which are needed for advanced technologies, especially for training artificial intelligence, AI.
Yeah, that's one thing, but what I was going to mention was what's the ultimate thing they need these things for? The micro chip. Okay? Why is this a worldwide plan? If I'm your enemy, like I said, I think I said that yesterday or the other day, if I'm your enemy, okay, how is it that we thought about the same solution to money? We're all just going to bring digital banks and digital currency and CHIP, okay? But I'm not your friend. We don't have meetings about this, supposedly, allegedly, but they do behind closed doors, okay? Because at the end of the day, the banking families are controlling these different things, all right? It's literally called banking, all right? Families, they have banks everywhere in every country, okay? So you see there's a world stage, and then there's the secret stage, all right?
And Trump has been trying to force this Taiwanese company to move its factories over to the U.S. to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in plants in the U.S. to make those chips domestically, because Trump knows that the U.S. is preparing for war in China, and that all of those factories and all of the capital equipment could be destroyed in this war that the U.S. military is planning for. So essentially, Trump wants to turn TSMC into a U.S. company. So the situation is very, very dangerous. The U.S. is playing with fire because from China's perspective, this is the reddest of all red lines. It cannot be crossed. According to international law, Taiwan is part of China. The U.S. is trying to break off part of China so it can make a big military base with nuclear weapons. China will never tolerate this in a million years. And this is why China has been doing regular, large-scale military exercises around Taiwan. The U.S. has been pushing this. This is so dangerous. And Hegseth is making it very clear that the U.S. military is preparing for war with China. In March, he took a trip to Asia, to Japan and the Philippines, and he held press conferences in which he said that the U.S. is preparing for war, basically. As the Wall Street Journal put it, Hegseth told U.S. Asian allies, "We're with you against China." When Hegseth was visiting Japan, which, by the way, colonized China and much of Asia during World War II, the 1930s and the 1940s, when Hegseth was visiting Japan, he announced the U.S. military is deepening its cooperation, its collaboration with Japan, and he announced the creation of joint, quote,
6 reasons why your health is failing, and you don't even know it. I'm honestly amazed at
joint, quote, war-fighting headquarters, end quote, to prepare for war against China. Listen to this clip here.
To conduct activities that will strengthen our bilateral bonds and deepen our operational cooperation. This also means reorganizing U.S. Forces Japan into a warfighting headquarters.
That's basically as clear as it's ever going to get. I mean, other than if the U.S. publicly declares war on China. But here you have the defense secretary publicly say that they're reorganizing U.S. forces in Japan into a war-fighting headquarters to prepare for war. And what's so crazy about the Trump administration's rhetoric is it's completely Orwellian. Listen to this quote here in which Hegseth claims that they want peace, but in order to have peace, they have to prepare for war, and they want to maximize their lethality.
Those who long for peace.
And that sounds like a typical thing that an Edomite would say, man. In order to have peace, we must have war. And there's still no peace, but there's still wars, okay? But they were given what? A great sword to take peace from the earth, all right? They weren't given the sword to make peace. That's not what the scriptures say. They were given a great sword to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another, which is exactly why we're at this point where we're at right now, okay? But that's a typical Edomite thing for you to hear them say, right?
Must prepare for war. We must be prepared. We look forward to working closely together as we improve our warfighting capabilities, our lethality, and our readiness.
The main slogan that the Trump administration is constantly repeating is that they want so-called peace through strength, which is another very Orwellian slogan.
As you know, President Trump has said America will reestablish peace through strength.
Hegseth said the Trump administration has three main goals for the military.
Reviving the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military, and restoring deterrence. Those are the three pillars of what President Trump's Pentagon is trying to do to make sure we're prepared.
Now, in pretty much every war in human history, the aggressor always claims to be acting in self-defense. I mean, even Adolf Hitler absurdly claimed that supposedly he was acting in the defense of Germany or whatever nonsense he was saying. And of course, the U.S. military, which has been at war nonstop for centuries, has also always claimed that it's acting in self-defense for human rights or whatever. And this is no exception here. In his remarks in Japan, Hegseth claimed that the U.S. and Japan are working together to fight against communist Chinese aggression. Now, keep in mind that whenever he talks about China, he always says communist China. This is, the Cold War rhetoric that we're back to.
America and Japan stand firmly together in the face of aggressive and coercive actions by the communist Chinese.
Now, I really need to fact-check the U.S. Defense Secretary there, because it's so ridiculous hearing the head of the U.S. military claim that China is the aggressive one. China has not fought a war since 1979. That was the last war that China fought, 1979, whereas the U.S. military has engaged in literally hundreds of military interventions just in the past few decades. According to official U.S. government data from the Congressional Research Service, the U.S. military launched 251 foreign interventions from 1991 until 2022, and 469 military interventions abroad from 1798 until 2022. The U.S. military has intervened in the majority of all of the countries on Earth, and yet we're supposed to believe that China is supposedly the aggressive one, while the U.S. military is surrounding China with missile systems that can hit the majority of China's cities. I mean, it's completely Orwellian. We're living in a topsy-turvy world. We're living in opposite land. But the U.S. Defense Secretary repeated the same Orwellian rhetoric when he visited the Philippines in March on this tour of Asia. And Pete Hegseth said that the United States is working to fight against communist China's aggression.
It reflects the strength, as I said, of our ironclad alliance, particularly in the face of communist China's aggression in the region.
But in this press conference in the Philippines, Pete Hegseth mentioned the commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel Paparo, and he said that this U.S. Admiral Paparo is making, quote, real war plans, end quote, and then he said that the U.S. military is creating strategic dilemmas for the communist Chinese. Listen here.
You mentioned the 7th Fleet. It's not my job to determine where the 7th Fleet goes. I defer to Admiral Paparo and his war plans, real war plans. Admiral Paparo understands the situation, understands the geographic significance, understands the urgency, and is prepared to work with those in the region to ensure we are leaning forward in our posture, not waiting for events to develop, not retrograding to places further from the front, but deploying capabilities forward, posturing and creating dynamics and strategic dilemmas for the communist Chinese.
Now, the Philippines has become the main U.S. proxy that Washington is trying to use to push for war on China. And the U.S. military has gotten access to several new military bases in the Philippines. This goes back to the Biden administration, and now the Trump administration is continuing this policy of militarizing the Philippines to prepare for war on China. The current government of the Philippines is led by a very pro-U.S. leader named Ferdinand Marcos Jr., known as Bongbong Marcos. He's the son of the former longtime dictator of the Philippines, who during the First Cold War was a loyal U.S. puppet, and he governed the Philippines with an iron fist. He was a brutal dictator, and the Marcos family is also notorious for being extremely corrupt. During this U.S.-backed right-wing dictatorship in the Philippines, the Marcos family stole billions of dollars of wealth from the people of the Philippines, which is a very poor country, and they never faced any consequences, any repercussions. And now the corrupt dictator's son is back in power, and he has once again turned the Philippines into a loyal U.S. proxy in the new Cold War. And in this press conference...
And I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to close up. You can watch the rest of this video from beginning to end. Like I said, a very good video. But I want to go ahead and get a couple more scripts so we can close it out. All right, you can watch the rest of that for yourself. Let me see here. Actually, I'm gonna go here. Zephaniah 3, course, and 8. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to pray. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them my indignation, which is his righteous anger, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So it doesn't matter, if people keep trying to, these nations keep trying to avoid, certain conflicts and things of that nature. And but you, especially with America, you hear them say one thing out of their mouth, but their actions say another thing. All right. So, you get all these different people, all right, talking about avoiding this, avoiding that, avoiding World War III, all right, trying to come to this peace deal here, peace. Nobody's going to come to any peace deal. Everybody is fighting, excuse me, like the state of Israel. They're not going to stop doing what they're doing. Russia's not going to stop pursuing Ukraine. North Korea and South Korea are not going to stop going at one another, okay? Excuse me, China's not going to stop pursuing Taiwan, and so on and so forth, man. Okay, because this is the Lord stirring up the kings of these nations, man. Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hands of the Lord, and as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So it's the Lord's prophecy playing out that all these nations, all right, are doing what they do, and things are playing out the way that they're playing out. Let's end it here. Joel 3:9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, talking about the heathens. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, all right? Not make peace deals and try to quell a situation here and there. No. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. All right? Army, like what's right now. U.S. secretly, constantly, all right, for a long time, trying to aid Taiwan, all right? Which is not so much of a secret, but I'm just making a point, all right? That's a weak, all right, saying they're strong because of the aid that they're getting from America. And there's other countries that have done that, all right, with their strategical alliances, all right? Now we're able to get enriched uranium and stuff like that. We could build nukes and we could do this, we could do that. We have defense systems, we have offensive systems, we have this time, whatever, from their strategical alliances, right, with one side or the other. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong. Which that scripture 10 links up with Isaiah 14. It says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. It says, has thou become as weak as we? Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, or Yehoshaphat, which Shaphat means judge, okay? For there will I sit, there it is right there, to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. We're in that time of that harvest of World War III, all right, for these nations to be destroyed. After America's taken out by all of them, okay, Revelation 17, these shall hate the whore, their allies of U.S., as well as, the allies of the BRICS, okay? Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for the wickedness is great. Yeah, that great, that wine press, okay? This earth is the Lord's wine press, okay? He's going to press these nations, right, with war, okay? Multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And then it goes on to talk about the missiles, man. Okay, so I just wanted to get into that video. I saw it yesterday and it slipped my mind, but the water Yahweh Shah, and it came back to thought. All right, which is why I jumped into it. Okay, I might want to watch it again myself from the beginning to the end. Okay, I don't think I watched all the way to the end as of yet, but I watched most of the video, and I just wanted to go into that portion there that we had on this video here. So, we're gonna leave it at that. Lord will, you will edify. Shalom.